This week in the housing market update, we are going to talk about Oahu's housing market, where we stand as we begin the month of May, and we're going to get granular here. We're going to talk about Ewa Beach and Kapolei, not Ewa Beach and not Kapolei. All right, it's Ewa Beach and Kapolei, and we're going to see what moved the market this week. So let's get right into this week's housing market update. Let's start with the big three. Housing prices are steady. Inventory is up. We're talking near 10-year highs right now for inventory in Oahu, and rates are steady. Not a lot of movement right now. We really need some big news, good or bad, for rates to move out of the range that they're in. Let's get into some of the headline news. What moved the market this week? We'll talk about that. Honolulu housing market, the Oahu housing market is very steady, which is no surprise. And I tell you what, it's just like the market's like this racehorse is trying to get out of the pen and wants to freaking take off. But right now it's being held back. We'll talk a little bit about that. ADP jobs report. Have we bottomed out the private sector jobs? We're seeing a big increase in the number of new jobs. New home sales showing signs of life. We'll talk about Ewa Beach or Kapolei. What's the difference? Why would you be interested in either place? And then what to ask at an open house. A lot of people are going to open houses right now, starting to pick up. We get into that moving season. And what do you ask, though, when you get there? What are the things that you need to know? And then we'll talk about, we have an FAQ Friday question for you, and then VA rates. Hey, VA rates are steady. We'll break it down. Let's go. So the biggest movement of rates this week came on Wednesday when the talks regarding a peace deal with Iran really started to pick up steam. We had this project Restored Freedom, I think is what it was called. That stopped, but there was some movement towards, at least in words, towards peace in the Middle East. But you know what? Talk is cheap, my friends, and we didn't see that. We saw rates go back up on Thursday, and who knows what we'll see on Friday. The other big thing that moved the market this week was markets are believing, and actually some of the companies that do analysis are thinking that, you know what, we're not going to have a shift in Fed cuts. We're not going to have any Fed cuts. They're not going to ease the Fed funds rate because of oil-based inflation fears being prolonged. So that was kind of big news. That was kind of that provided some downward pressure. That actually kind of we had some downward pressure on interest rates due to the talk or the assumption that that we're moving towards peace in Iran. But really, the talk of no more Fed cuts due to oil-priced inflation really kind of put a dour note on that. You know, the other thing that put a dour note and caused interest rates to go up a little bit at least was the ADP private sector jobs report. We'll get into that, but basically it looks like we may have bottomed out and we'll kind of look at the chart, but we saw a big increase in jobs on the private sector jobs report, mostly from small and large companies, but still a big surprise to the upside. That certainly shows that the labor market is still hot. But again, everything driving the market, really, I would say overruling what we're seeing in the jobs market, it's Iran and what is happening in Iran. And that, quite frankly, is a day-to-day thing, and it's moving rates one way or the other. Again, that's why we're stuck in the range that we're in. Even as we end this week, it's what's going on in Iran, what is truly happening, even after a peace plan is agreed to, however many points, 14, 12, 8, 10, who knows. Actions speak louder than words. We actually need to see the action. I do not expect to see the forces in theater to leave really anytime soon, because you know what? Having our military over there really puts the pressure on them, and especially economic pressure. You would think we certainly have the military might, but because of that military might, we're also able to put economic pressure on Iran, and that's really starting to take a toll. Let's take a look at the April Honolulu Board of Realtors housing market update. And you know what? We saw a little bit of a downturn, 1.15 million median sales price for single family homes, a drop by almost 5% year over year. Not much off the high though. I think we're at 1.19 last month. And then median sales price dropped, I think, from 510 down to 500,000. So on condos, still pretty solid overall. Again, in a range. Let's take a look at the monthly indicators. April, we did see a decline in single-family home sales from 260 down to 230. While we saw an increase in condos. Why an increase? Well, because they're more affordable, quite frankly. And we saw that rise by about 7.7% for condos month over month, so that was good. Median sales price, again, down a little bit, but really steady in a range. Days on market, though, show a huge difference from single-family homes on condos. You see days on market up for single-family homes and days on market down for condos. Again, that goes back to condos selling a little quicker because they are more affordable. New listings were up, a little down from last year, but month over month up. And that's normal. When you see, when we get into this moving season, people are starting to put their home on the market. Some people like to do this stuff early. They're getting ahead of everyone else. They're getting their homes on the market. And then months of supply up for both condos and single family homes. Matter of fact, for condos, we are squarely in a buyer's market. When you see anything over 4.6 months of supply, that is a buyer's market. We're at 6.5 months of supply. Single family homes, depending on where you're looking, you would think that there is a buyer's market, but quite frankly, across the island, it's still a seller's market because, if you have a single family home, 4-bedroom, even a 3-bedroom, you're going to sell pretty quickly if you price it right. So that's why you're seeing not a lot of inventory. Those homes are going relatively quickly. And let's take a look at new listings. All right, we had a nice rebound. Again, over 1,000 total new listings in the month of April. And hey, people have to sell. People, we're in PCS season. And one thing that I've heard, and I don't know if it's entirely true, but I do know, speaking of realtors, who do a lot of listings, there are a lot of sellers who are kind of desperate to sell. They need rates to come down so they can sell and not lose their shirts on some of the homes that they purchased 2-3 years ago, and they purchased over market value. And there was a lot, that started happening in it was happening really 2021, 2022, and now those people who paid $100,000 over appraised value in a competitive market, some of them are having problems selling their home because they just didn't quite get that $100,000 in appreciation. So, there are, I don't know, again, 1 in 4 homes are in a short sale situation. I don't know how truthful that is, but based on what I'm hearing, it might be closer to a 1 out of 4 than not. And again, if you look at this new listings, 1,049, that is the highest number of new listings since June of 2025. Again, that's peak of PCS season. That's the peak of the moving season in Oahu and across the country, quite frankly. And active inventory, we have eclipsed the 3,000 active inventory mark. This is, again, both single family homes and condos. Over 700 single family homes on market, 2,353 for condos. And expect to see this inventory continue to increase if sales continue to slow due to economic conditions and the affordability issues that we are having. Question now, you see we're still rising the condos. I mean, you could look at that chart. You barely see any movement in single family homes, but you are seeing steady movement upward for condos. And will we get to all-time high in active inventory of condos? I think it's pretty likely that we will, but we'll see. But again, a good market for buyers. Single family homes, you price it right, you're going to sell yours too. Closed sales, again, we were down last month, but it really wasn't bad. Biggest decline, though, was in single family. You can see that drop in single family homes. We saw the increase in condos overall. And then where were the winners? Well, single family homes, 900,000 to 1.1 million, showed the largest gains, up 37.8%. Condo sale gains were largest between 400 and 500,000 at a 26.9% gain. And 1.1 million to 2 million, a 50% increase in condo sales in that price range. Hello, talk about high HOAs, but you know what? The value's there. People are buying them. Now let's take a look at the median sales price. We're just off the all-time highs of 1.199, or basically 1.2 million. We're down to 1.15. So still pretty solid single family homes. Again, the elevator, we're just stuck on that, the 1.15 to 1.19 floor. Same with condos, right around 500,000. Once rates go down, when rates go down, I don't think there's an if, it'll happen. But when rates go down, you'll start seeing those prices go up, and we'll get above 500, maybe closer to 520, 540, who knows, maybe even 550 in condos, and then certainly above 1.2. And once we get there, I think we'll stay. But really steady, and that's good in this market where we have had affordability issues. You know, again, a lot of it has to do with interest rates being so high, and they just have steadied in this range, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But overall, solid month in April. Good for buyers, good for sellers. Again, price it right as a seller, you'll sell your property. And a buyer, I tell you what, there's a lot. I have, you know, I don't know, I probably had like 40 buyers come to me in the month of April, and I had a lot of them go into contract, but I also had some who were kind of hesitant, and I understand the concerns. Maybe you're not going to buy that $1.5 million home, but you're not buying your forever home. All right, I probably say 80% of people who buy are not buying their forever home. But if they buy right and in a budget, man, it's going to set them up for success. I can't wait to talk to you about Ewa Beach and Kapolei, because that's where a lot of people are gaining equity by buying homes there. All right, so let's get on to the next topic. Something we do not have enough of in Oahu. Matter of fact, we were just, I was at the North Shore Regional and we were talking about how do we solve this home affordability crisis for millennials and Gen Z, and taxing, penalizing short-term rentals. That's not the solution. That's an excuse. Quite frankly, we need more homes. We need to build more homes. That's the only way we're going to solve a problem. You're not going to solve the problem by penalizing a $5 million house on the beach that rents out to tourists. Matter of fact, the North Shore, and every part of the island's a little different, but the North Shore, where you have a lot of these homes, guess what? First-time home buyer ain't gonna afford a $5 million home, and the North Shore tourism is getting crushed right now. They need the tourists in. They need to be able to rent those properties. Oh, and by the way, the North Shore is not underwater. There are certain areas that were affected, but many of the areas, they are not affected. They are not impacted. So don't stay away from the North Shore. And thank you to all those people who are giving food and clothing and supplies to the North Shore. They really have everything they need. At least that's what we were talking about at the North Shore Regional. So thank you to everybody who provided support, not just your manpower, your money, but your supplies. So thank you very much. Let's take a look at new home sales, and this is across the country. I know I just kind of went off track, but hey, we saw a 7.4% jump in March, totally beating expectations. And the 682,000 pace for new home sales is near highest since we've seen since 2023. And here's the other thing, though, and this is what the media is kind of talking about. Oh my gosh, the home builders are struggling. And median sales price is down at $387,000. Well, that's because they're building cheaper homes, selling cheaper, more affordable homes. So naturally, you're going to see the median sales price go down. That's nice, 5%, just over 5% month over month. Contract signings are up 17% since the start of the year. So that shows building affordable homes and giving incentives to first-time home buyers is helping. And you look at months of supply, stood down 8 to 8.5 months. New homes are sitting longer. You see more new home sales, 481,000. That's pretty stable. That's pretty solid as we're getting into the moving time of the year. But really, we need over 1 million homes, new homes, to really meet the demand. And I like that the median sales price is coming down, because that means we're building more affordable homes. Let's talk about jobs market. The private sector really smashed through expectations. 109,000 new jobs in April, which was way above what was expected. I think it was like 60,000 expected. The small and large businesses saw the largest increase. Labor market, again, based on this number, you look at the February, March, and April numbers beating expectations, shows that maybe, just maybe, we have bottomed out and are on the rise for the labor market across the nation. Now, of course, on Friday, we do have the BLS jobs report, but nobody really has a lot of faith in that report. It's outdated, not very accurate. And a lot of people actually go by and look at this ADP report for really just for the truth in the labor market. Pay was flat. If you look at that, job stayers, you saw a 4.4% increase versus the previous 4.5 months. So still a pay increase, but not as big a pay increase as the previous month. And job changers saw the same 6.6%. Initial jobless claims came out on Thursday. Those were up to 200,000, up 10,000 to 200,000. So that's a little higher than normal. That's good. And continuing claims were down around 1.74. So not as high as we've seen. We had challenger job cuts, showed 83,000 cuts in April. Most of those due to AI. That's the highest level of job cuts since April of 2009. So that's a pretty big deal. We saw JOLTS. The JOLTS report came out on Tuesday. Job opening and labor turnover survey. We saw a drop from 6.9 to 6.87 million jobs available across the country. So a slight drop. And again, we'll see what happens on the BLS jobs report on Friday. Expectation 60,000 new jobs. We had 4.3% unemployment last month. And where will we be this month? Who knows? It's a crapshoot. Nobody knows. We'll see though. And we're talking about open houses now. Open houses. You go to an open house. You're looking to buy a home. You see this realtor in there. You know, I mean, I have some cookies. Oh man, I went to this one. They had these ube cookies. Oh my god, they were so good. I actually took two. And what do you ask besides eating the food and drinking their water? What do you ask at an open house? That's a great question. I tell you what I'd be asking. What are the expected costs? Can I see, do you have a utility bill? Do you have the electricity bill? And if they have solar panels, there's one property in Ewa Beach right now, Ocean Point, 49 solar panels on the old net metering system. You're not paying a bill there, man. You're getting a credit. Matter of fact, last month I got 30 some odd panels on my house. I had a credit last month. Woo woo, no electric bill. I love that. I love it in sunny Ewa Beach. And but you got to ask about, hey, when was the last time your HVAC, especially in Ewa Beach and Kapolei, where it gets kind of hot? Where is the HVAC? When was the last time the HVAC was replaced or serviced? How long ago was the roof replaced? What recent upgrades have you had in the house? But definitely inquire about the utilities. Let's talk also about the HOA dues. All right, in my neighborhood, when people hear, HOA dues are between $800 and $900, they freak out. But they don't realize that covers everything except electricity. We're talking water, sewage, trash, cable, internet, telephone, front yard maintenance of the community where we have a pool and a hot tub and security gate. So, when you look at it, the HOA is, quite frankly, it's right around $500. It's really not that bad when you consider everything that total payment covers. You want to know about the livability. What are the neighborhood details? What kind of traffic? What's the traffic going to work? What about HOA rules on pets and gardens and noise and paint? You might not be able to have that purple polka dot painted front door that you had in your old neighborhood. So you got to ask those questions. And then you got to know, what is the market like? All right. If you're driving down a street and you see 4 or 5 houses on the market on that one street, guess what? Buyer's market. All right. But what's the competition saying? Why aren't homes selling? Go to the different homes on that street and find out a little bit. What separates one or what differentiates one home from another? So important that you do that. And really working with your realtor. Don't do it alone. You need to have a solid realtor. And if you're working and you don't know who to choose, you know what? Talk to me. I'll help you out. I know some of the best realtors on island. I talk to them every week, multiple times a week, and they will help you figure out what is the right price to offer, if you should offer on a property at all. They're going to do that homework for you. They're going to work for you to help you buy the right home, and teamed with your lender, they're going to help you become a successful homeowner. So when you go to your open house, ask the cost, livability, what's it like in the neighborhood, and competition. What is the neighborhood sell? What are homes selling for? Are there is there a line for the open house? You got to ask all those questions. Some of that you're just going to see, but don't be afraid to ask questions. I just did a podcast with Erica Lemke, a great realtor on the island of Oahu, and she said something that was to the effect of, it's better to be dumb for 5 minutes than to be dumb for 5 years. or an entire life? Ask the question. Don't be afraid to ask the question. All right, especially when you're talking about a 500,000 to $1 million, $1.5 million home. This is one of my favorite questions. What home price is right for me? It's different for everybody. Everybody's a little different. All right, I just talked to a family and they're looking at conventional loan. My question to them is, well, what is your comfortable mortgage payment? Well, I don't know. Well, you know what? You need to know that because that determines what home price is right for you. What can you comfortably pay and not be house poor? I say it all the time. Ramen is great, but not for 3 meals a day unless you're in college like my son. You want to make sure that you have a budget, that you and your spouse, if you have one, have sat down and gone over the budget and you know what you can afford. And you also, if you're new to the island, you're coming to the island, you need to know, well, what's the cost of electricity? What is the cost of gas, especially if you're driving from, say Ewa Beach all the way to Joint Base Pearl Harbor, Hickam, or Fort Shafter. You need to know kind of those items. You need to factor that in. The people who budget can come up with a number. And also the other thing is your pay. You're getting paid more in Oahu than you are on the mainland. So, a lot of people say, well, I can only do X amount. Well, when you take a look at your BAH, which is non-government tax BAH, which is your buy a house, all right, your buy a house fund. You have your cost of living allowance out here. You have your basic allowance for subsistence in addition to your pay. So you make more money than what you think if you're active duty in the military. But you need to know those numbers. That's, to me, is the biggest thing. What can you comfortably afford? Oahu is a great place to live, and many people who live here don't ever want to leave. That's what Tosh right here. I thought I'd be gone in 3 years. Well, guess what? 17 years later, I'm still on island. All right. What home price for you? Don't do that alone. Don't do it alone, people. Talk to your lender. All right. I'm not trying to sell you a home. I'm trying to make you a successful homeowner. You're not a successful homeowner if you're overpaying for a home. So talk to your lender. Get that budget down. When I do a pre-approval, I do a pre-approval plus. That's where I sit down with you, mano, imano, or womano, and we usually Google Meet, but we go over, we look at home prices, we look at neighborhoods, and we get you comfortable with that price range so that when you go looking with your realtor, you're confident. And confidence means everything. You got to know what you're spending. So work with your loan officer. All right, that's all I got to say about that. Let's talk about Ewa Beach and Kapolei. This is west side, best side, leeward side of Oahu. This is where many people who are moving to Oahu are going because it is more affordable in Ewa Beach and Kapolei. But what is the difference between the two? There's a big difference between the two. So let's talk about this. On paper, they look kind of similar. The value of homes is really pretty close. They're on the same side of the island. They have the same sunny weather. I love the weather over here. It's funny, I have some friends who live in town and on the windward side, and they come over here to golf with me, and they're like, oh, it's so hot over here. I'm like, I love it. I love the sunshine. But you got sun, you got to factor in traffic though. You got to factor in schools. What about entertainment? What about dining? And what about long-term appreciation? Those are things that really change the conversation on whether you should be in Ewa Beach or in Kapolei. And let me tell you, if you're young and you're looking to buy, it's a great buy in Ewa Beach and Kapolei, but there's not much of a nightlife down here. All right, both areas are mostly residential. All right, so most of those people who are looking for that fun, for the nightlife, man, they're buying in town. But I tell you what, the better investment, it's over on the west side. All right, so let's talk about each. Kapolei, that's the second city. That's where the growth in Oahu is planned. We got Kamakana Alihi, a relatively new mall. We have the rail. And you know what? People have been knocking the rail since it started, which I think it started pretty much right when I moved here 17 years ago. It's way over budget, but it's working. And guess what? I take it. And I know a lot of people who do take it to get to work. So Kapolei, you got like 3 or 4 stops right in Kapolei. You don't have any in Ewa Beach. And traffic is a bugger. And let me tell you what, if you take the rail, and a lot of people carpool through the rail, they meet at the rail, they take the rail, they have a car at one of the stops, and then they finish their transit into work. Great idea. You have West Oahu. You have some newer schools and newer communities being built in Kapolei. And you have a lot more. You have a lot more restaurants, a little more nightlife. It is more built up, more supportive of kind of a busier lifestyle. Certainly not like downtown, but it's really, really solid. In Kapolei, you know what? It feels newer. Quite frankly, it's a little more convenient. Now let's go to Ewa Beach. That's more residential. That's where families go. You got that neighborhood feel. You have the tree-lined streets where you can walk. Tell you what, you're closer to the beach. The lifestyle, the beach lifestyle. If you like the golf, man, you're surrounded by golf courses. I could golf. You're like 8 golf courses within a 5-mile radius of my home in Ewa Beach. Love it. Although I usually only play one. But you have that. You have a tighter community feel. You have the new resort area in Hawaii being built. And they have farmers market. They have a couple of decent restaurants down there. An outdoor water area. And that area will build up. It's just been kind of slow over the course of time. Now let's talk shopping. There's not a lot of shopping in Ewa Beach. You really don't have a lot. You got Safeway, you got a Foodland, you got Foodland Farms, you got Food Lion, really not that much. Kapolei, you got Costco, you got a Target, you got a Walmart, you got all of that. You got a Home Depot. So really a lot more business structured, again, more restaurants in Kapolei. Ewa Beach, man, it's residential neighborhoods. I love it, but you know what? Some people want to be near those things. You're like you're 10, 15 minutes. They almost blend together, Ewa Beach and Kapolei in some areas. So let's talk about the next big thing, and that's commute. Commute out of Ewa Beach, you're taking one of two roads. You're taking Fort Weaver all the way up, man. It is stoplight after stoplight. It'd take it 30 minutes just to get off of Fort Weaver driving up from down in Ewa. You could go Kapolei Parkway up to Kualaka'i Parkway. And you're talking, 30 to 60 minute drive from Ewa Beach, quite frankly, on a daily basis, depending on the traffic. Kapolei, you got some more options. Again, you don't have as far a drive to get to the H1, which is the freeway that intersects the state from west to east or east to west. You don't have as far a drive. The traffic, so from Kapolei, you're talking about maybe 20 to 30 minutes typically to get into town. Hey, you know what? Carmageddon's going to get everybody. That don't matter where you live on the west side. Sometimes it happens. People complain about traffic. I know. I did not want to live in Ewa Beach when I first got here. I did not. I wanted nothing to do with it because I heard the traffic was bad. But you know what? I've lived all over. I've lived in the Bay Area. I've lived in Southern California. The traffic going into Norfolk is terrible. But this ain't that bad. It ain't that bad. It ain't bad as San Diego. It certainly ain't as bad as in DC or New York. A lot of Seattle, all those other places. Man, this traffic ain't bad at all. I tell you what I do. Man, I'm talking to family. Nobody talks like this. I'm talking to family when I'm driving. I'm listening to a podcast. I stay busy. When I'm driving in the traffic. And people are here. They're not bad when they're driving. The traffic kind of flows. You give a shaka, not a lot of horns honking. It's not a bad transit. So don't let the transit scare you. Schools, I can't say what schools are good or bad. I tell you what, every school is as good as you make it. In Kapolei, they do have a private school, Island Pacific Academy. I know a lot of children who go there, a lot of parents who send their children there, I should say. And but the high schools are good. Campbell is a great school in Ewa Beach. They just won the state championship of football. They have some great athletics. Overcrowded. All the schools in the island are overcrowded. The schools in Ewa Beach are typically a little older, although you do have Ewa Mackay, which is a middle school, and then you have Keoneula Elementary, which is a newer elementary school. But there just are not enough schools across the island. The schools that are in Kapolei are a little newer, and they're building newer schools in some of the areas that they're building up, Ho'opili and whatnot. Dining, hey, Kapolei wins, hands down. And if you go and if you consider Ko'olina is considered Kapolei, man, there's no comparison. All right, and I have houses in Ko'olina, and I'll go and I'll go stay there just to have dinner out there. And they're building more. They're building the Dukes out there where they used to have Paradise Cove Luau. They're building more shops and more stores, which is good for the economy. It's good for the tourism. It's good for the people that live there. I mean, I know I love going into Ko'olina to eat and to just to hang out the lagoons. It's a great area, and they're continuing to build up there. So really dining, entertainment, Kapolei wins hands down. But if you're a golfer, Ewa Beach is the way to go. Investment-wise, Kapolei is a little less expensive than Ewa Beach, but you have more to choose from in Ewa Beach. Kapolei, you have more infrastructure support. Ewa Beach attracts buyers who are wanting more value, and larger residential communities. Bottom line, Kapolei, it's convenience, it's entertainment, it's infrastructure growth. Ewa Beach, it's community, it's value, and it's a residential lifestyle. Both are strong plays, though, in West Oahu. It just depends on what matters most to you. And the longer you own the home, guess what? You're going to find the value anywhere where you buy on the island, especially in Ewa Beach and Kapolei. And speaking of appreciation, let's talk about that. Back around 2016, the median single-family home prices in both Kapolei and Ewa Beach were sitting roughly in the mid-500s. Fast forward to 2026, and now you're seeing areas in Kapolei pushing around the low to mid-900s. In Ewa Beach, you're talking 800 to 900,000, and many single-family homes are over $1 million in both neighborhoods. Both areas appreciated hard over the last decade. I know the two properties that I own have basically almost doubled in appreciation in less than 10 years. That's right. A really huge amount of appreciation. Again, if you're looking to flip, tough to do, but if you're looking at playing the long game, the value is there. So you're looking at in the last 10 years, 60 to 80% appreciation across the board in single-family homes in Ewa Beach and Kapolei. Really, both are strong plays. If you're looking to flip, that's where you get in trouble. But if you're playing the long game, great communities to buy homes in. I'm not kidding, homes. Investment-wise, I think both are strong long-term plays. But if rail expansion, commercial growth, infrastructure continue the way they're projected, Kapolei could continue closing the gap with central Oahu, even the windward side of Oahu in pricing. People bag on the rail all the time, but man, I love it. The convenience is great. You got West Oahu right there with huge expansive amount of land that they're able to build the infrastructure to support people living and enjoying life. Ewa Beach still has one of the strongest family buyer pipelines on the island because people want space. They want newer homes and relative affordability compared to town, the windward side, certainly the Gold Coast and Hawaii Cod. Honestly, hey, I live in Ewa Beach myself. I'm probably never leaving, but that's just me. Everybody's a little different. I don't think you're going wrong if you're playing the long game. Oh yeah, and you love paradise. I love it here. Never leaving. And finally, we get to mortgage rates. Well, I wish I had better news for everybody, but I don't. But we're still in a range. It ain't that bad, folks. Stop crying. Don't say I'm going to rent forever. You just got to get in. Your first rate's not your last rate. Your first home's not your forever home. But rates, they kind of went up a little bit this week. We started the week at 5.94 VA. Now we're at like 5.96. But we did pop over 6% for a couple days there. And that was no bueno. But talks of peace brought the rates back down. We'll see what the BLS jobs report does. And we'll see what continued progress in peace talks in Iran brings as well. But we are right in a range between 5.8 and 6% on VA, 6.25 to 6.6% on conventional. That's where we're at, folks. Them's the numbers. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you later.